Hello, everybody. Benjamin here. Do a quick video. I'll start in a positive place, and we'll see how this goes. I'll try to keep this under 10 minutes, not very long. I want to remind people that are going through a divorce because this happens all the time. Like yesterday, somebody got married, and today somebody's going through a divorce with children, right? This is just a constant thing. People are divorcing like crazy. Um, and I forget that. A friend had reminded me they wanted me to talk to a guy that's going through a divorce and just see if I could give him any helpful pointers. And so I'm just reminded that this is a constant thing. People are constantly going through this with their children. Let me say this, though, to start out in a good note. I took last week off of work because my son was scheduled to be with me for the latter half of the holiday break. So this year I was able to take the time off and be with him for 10 days. 10 days straight. I think it was 10 days, I think. And it was so good. And there's all these things I wanted to do with him. I wanted to go to this place. I wanted to go to this other place. And I thought, let's just stick close to home, not go too far. Um, Try not to spend a whole bunch of money like I was thinking in my head I was going to do. And we just had such a great time in each other's company, It was so good. It was so good to see him, and it's so good to see him growing. And he's such a blessing, and it's such a blessing to be a father. It's such a joy, right? But I mean, just a few years ago, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I didn't even know if I was going to have the option of being a father to him the way it looked like in the divorce court. And that's just a reminder to remind people, particularly the guys, okay, when you're going through this and the war has been declared on you, as it were, in that, like, hey, I want you to have a bad dad schedule. That's every other weekend and like 2 weeks during the summer. Or, you have to fight. Like I had to do this. And granted, my fathering has never been in question. Excuse me. I was never a bad dad. And I had to plea deal like a convict on how to get parenting time and prove why I could be a dad, right? If I'm not mistaken, unless this has changed, there's only 3 states now that allow, when a divorce happens, it starts at 50-50 custody. It starts there. No one has to explain anything. No one has to, at least what I gather, yes or no, or why not, or show paperwork, or all this stuff. It's like 50-50 custody out the gate. And then if it needs to be reasoned as to why you shouldn't have that, versus like what most states have. I had to explain why, and I got a really good deal, to be honest, why I should be a dad, why I should have this time. And I still don't have 50-50 custody. And that's mostly because of, that's really work schedule is what that is. All that to say, all that aside, because at the time when you're going through it, dads, listen, if this is starting for you in 2024, if your divorce starts in 2024, you're going to feel like you're going mad. And like, does nobody else see this? Does nobody else think this is crazy? Right? So you don't know at the time that things are going to get better. You don't know that. And I'm telling you, a few years removed, it does. Right? And the time that I do get with my kid it's so sweet to me. I mean, it's an absolute godsend. And so let me just say this. A friend of mine had told me this, and when I divorce first started, and it was looking like I was hardly seeing my kid, and I just didn't understand the whole thing. And I still don't understand why it has to be this combative. You get it. And a friend of mine told me, he says, look, man, you need to, now's not the time to lose it. Like, don't fly off the handle now. Now it's time to dial it in, work on your, get your job, you got to get your finances in order. You have to, you have to get a lawyer. And he says, and I know you feel crazy, man, but it's like, don't blow this. Because if you go off the handle and you yell at your ex, or you, whatever, I make it up, right? It could be a threatening phone call, whatever it is. I don't know, a threatening text message even. If you don't think they won't absolutely chop your head off and let you never see your kids again, they will. And my friend was kind of telling me this. He's like, man, just be cool. Don't do anything rash. Don't do anything stupid. You got to plot your course, man. And he was right. And I followed his advice. And I come across a scripture that reminds me of that. It's Psalms 131. And it just says this: I've calmed and quieted my soul. Like a child, my soul is quieted within me, right? I've calmed and quieted my soul. Like a child that is quieted. It says, like a child that is quieted. It says, so is my soul, right? And that's the place you have to get to when you're going through divorce. If your divorce starts in 2024, that's where you have to get to. In fact, this is amazing. He says, I have calmed and quieted my soul. It's not like it was anybody else's responsibility. It was anybody else's deal. The writer here says, I have calmed and quieted my own soul. And that's good advice always, but especially when you're going through a divorce and you're hardly seeing your kids and you don't even know how you're going to feed yourself. You get it, because you still have to pay spousal support and mortgage and all this other stuff they make you pay. And you don't even know how you're going to eat. None of that matters. None of that matters. You have to play the long game. I will beat this dead horse forever. You have to play the long game and calm yourself and steel yourself. This is going to make a man out of you, and it's going to get better. Okay? And I can attest to that. I know every situation is different, but I can attest to that, man. Just this last week, having all that time with my son, when there was a period of time, as someone who was never a bad dad, that I didn't even look like I was going to be able to be a father. So that's the goal, man. Just get quiet, get calm, get stoic, get rational, and just start atomizing and breaking things down in a rational way. You're going to feel emotional. It's going to tear you to pieces. None of that matters. It doesn't matter. Get quiet, man. And you're there for your kids. That is it. That is it. Now, here's the good news. A lot of this father's rights stuff is really gaining traction right now. Now, none of it really matters until it becomes legislation and things started getting voted on. Okay? But nevertheless, there's a lot of father's rights activism going on right now. Not in terms of protests or anything like that. A lot of it's online and in groups. Like, a lot of guys are getting together and meeting and things like this. But these wheels are slowly starting to change. And so when I say things like father's rights, I'm pro father's rights. I don't mean the opposite of that. Just because I'm a pro father's rights in divorce, it doesn't mean I'm anti mother's rights. Okay? It's like I tell people, divorce doesn't work. The time doesn't work. The finances don't work. The emotions don't work. It's not a puzzle piece that fits together. It doesn't work. Okay? So you're going to take some things as losses. Time with your kids, finances, you lose your spouse. That's normal in divorce, okay? But the good thing about going through divorce right now and in the future as this thing keeps going is that father's rights are progressing, okay? And dads are getting more of a fair crack shot at being present fathers. So this is a good thing, okay? Last thing, I'm going to end with this. If you're thinking about divorcing in 2024, and you think, for whatever reason, you might think, well, there's someone else better out there for me, my soulmate, the one that God has for me. But because this was my trial run, this was my starter husband, this was my starter spouse, and now there's, I'll find the real person, the real love, right? Like you see in the movies or whatever. It's like, you don't understand. nobody's coming. No one. Nobody's going to marry you. I hate to say this, but like the future for the most part is single, right? And the numbers are proving this out. And I'll say this, unless, barring two big things, cataclysmic events like financial crashes or just something that forces couples to stay together because out of necessity because they need each other, and probably let's say financial fallout, something like that, or a religious awakening, but I think, in my opinion, barring those two types of things, marriage is done, and I think people are starting to realize that marriage is the most, when you do it through the state, through the government, it's the most legally binding contract you will ever sign. Marriage is the most legally binding contract you'll ever sign. And guys, I don't care how tough you think you are, how alpha male you think you are, and how you can do whatever you want. I'm an alpha guy. I'm gonna, hold masculine frame. Like, no one out alphas the state, man. Nobody out alphas the state. You're not tough enough. You're not big enough. Your wallet isn't that deep. You are subject at that point to the government as soon as you sign marriage contract. And so if, God forbid, and let me say this, Lord have mercy on us all, right? Lord have mercy on us all for getting this wrong and not getting marriage right or how to raise our children right. But should the contract, let's say, go south, you owe. And I think people are realizing that now. And so they're not marrying like they used to. So, I mean, keep that in mind. There's no one else out here for you. It's single out here, and it is perpetually single, right? People don't want to marry. If you're a single parent, they don't want to help you raise your kids, right? It's just what it is. So, on a good note, keep that in mind. If your divorce should happen, God forbid, in 2024, you're more likely now than ever, I think, as a father, to be able to get a fair shake at raising your children and getting good, healthy parenting time, right? But then also, and this goes for men and women both, it's like you have to quiet your soul if this happens, because it's a real hardship. It's really probably the hardest thing you'll ever do. And I think that's a good rule of thumb for all of us right now. Again, I've calmed and quieted my soul like a child that is quieted, so is my soul. I think that's the best place for all of us to be right now.